Good afternoon and welcome to all of you wonderful non-resident parents out there, male and female. I've been in the privileged position to hear a lot of your stories, and this is the place to share them. There may be many people who won't listen, but we will listen here, and we'll take your stories and we will value them because they add to the collective whole of how the CMS is destroying lives. So thank you very much for sharing. It's really important. But today we're going to be talking about the bias and discrimination of Antionette Sandback towards paying parents, which is sickening, absolutely sickening. So let's dive in.
Clients carrying out reforms to abolish charges and properly collect maintenance would not only benefit parents with care by receiving their maintenance in full and on time, it would also be a lifeline to allow low-income families who would be lifted out of poverty. A culture of non-payment has developed.
I'm going to stop her right there. This word, a culture of non-compliance, this is discriminatory in the highest level. This is totally discriminatory. This is an incredible bias against paying parents as opposed to those who are resident parents. It's disgusting. It's absolutely abhorrent. If you are a non-resident parent, you are a parent. Whether you're paying or not seeing your child, or there's lots of complications around family court and arrears and all that kind of stuff, you are a parent. And sadly, the government and the CMS are not acknowledging you as a parent and somebody that's mostly, if you are at least involved in that child's life, important to that child's life. And if by some circumstances you've been removed from your child, that's abuse in the highest level, especially if you're not a danger, especially if there's no reason why you shouldn't be in your child's life. This woman, Antionette Sandback, should not in any way say this sort of stuff. It's not backed up by data. It's a misnomer. It's a lie. It's a media cover-up. It's wrong.
Parents are failing to make full and timely payments because the child maintenance service is allowing them to. The UK government is allowing them to. As Gingerbread have said, children living in single-parent families are almost twice at the risk of poverty.
What is poverty? Being in poverty means different things to different people. That's one of the reasons we have so many possible ways of measuring it in the UK. So one of the most valuable questions is to ask anyone who makes the claim on this topic is, what do you mean by poverty? The main recognised definition of poverty in the UK that you'll see used in the media and campaign groups and politicians is usually set against an 18th century idea of the destitute woman, a Victorian picture of a woman who's been dealt harshly by a wealthy, powerful man. Remember, in today's society, man is all powerful and needs to be taken down. It's the main pervasive ideology and it's a load of nonsense. Anyway, this rich and powerful man from the 18th century had his way with this lady and discarded her and is not interested in the situation she is now placed in with child and needs the hero of the state to fight for her rights. But of course, that picture which is placed before us all the time is not true. 75% of all divorces are instigated by women, and often that can include property and contents, and some even make false allegations to prevent fathers from seeing their children. But as far as these politicians are concerned, these women are in poverty.
Compared with children in coupled families, victims and survivors of domestic abuse should be protected by the UK government, not punished financially for their inability to engage with their abusive ex-partner.
So that's a blanket statement. Yes, we acknowledge that there are women who have suffered from domestic violence, and that's wrong. There's no one in society in their right mind who would support that. We as men don't like women being beaten up unless there's something quite wrong with you. but it's a blanket statement to say that all men are abusive. They're not. It's a lie.
It's clear that the UK government remains wedded to austerity, that this is in stark contrast to the efforts of the Scottish Government's determination to create inclusive, equal Scotland. I call upon the Minister to follow up on the gingerbread recommendations. I won't go through them because I've actually done this already in my speech, but they're very easy to access and there aren't a lot of them, but they would make a huge difference to parents with care, and more especially, please, make a difference to those children. The CMS what they do is insufficient, inefficient, and they're incapable.
I mean, I would totally agree with that. Yeah, the CMS is inefficient, incapable, and it's obsolete, and it shouldn't be there, and it's actually a government arm that causes an incredible amount of harm. This is a country that needs to have families, For there to be a healthy country, you need to have family. As a country of family, and family needs to be at the root and at the center of community. And this is just destroying. It's just destroying community from within. It needs to stop.
I thank the Honourable Lady. The question is that this House has considered the child maintenance service. There are 3 backbenchers trying to catch my eye, and the frontbenchers really cannot staff the wind-ups later than at 12:30. Antionette Sandback.
Chairman, and I thank the Honourable Lady for Motherwell and Wyshaw for calling this debate. I should perhaps put on the record that I have used the Child Support Agency for the last 13 years, and I would liken it to banging my head against a brick wall.
Well, that's probably a very fair statement, but if you're banging your head against a brick wall, the most likely cause is the fact that you are a non-resident parent. And we all know that the CMS does not take into account the non-resident parents' points of view, perspective, and many other stories which are tragic in terms of evidence that would really support their case. So if she's finding that dealing with the CMS is like banging her head against a brick wall, then maybe that should cause her to be a little bit more empathetic to all the fathers out there, all the parents out there who have been discriminated against on the basis that they do not live primarily with the child that's theirs.
For most of that time, I also spent 4 years as a caseworker supporting parents, particularly with the Child Support Agency, the predecessor to the CMS.
But does she really mean that she's been supporting parents with the CMS? Or does she mean that she's been supporting resident parents with the CMS? Because the likelihood is that she was a resident parent herself.
With their cases, because of my knowledge, my own personal knowledge of the procedures, my experience is that staff are not properly trained, that particularly the CMS staff, since the move over to DWP, have no idea what their enforcement powers are. They are extremely reluctant to use them. They fail to use them regularly, and there's a lack of proper compensation when mistakes are made by the CMS. Now, I appreciate that the volume of complaints to my inbox in relation to CMS is relatively small. If that's because
However, there are tons and tons and tons of complaints going to the National Audit Office all the time. Why? Because of the way that the CMS operates and the way that it behaves with non-resident parents. Anyway, we're going to leave it there because I'm finding it very hard to listen to that. Anyway, what are your thoughts? I'm very interested in your opinion, your experience. What's your story? What's the other side of the story? You can tell me. So what's the other side of the story? That's your story. Are you a non-resident parent? Are you avoiding pain? Or is the avoidance coming from the mother? Let me know in the comment sections below. Speak to you soon.